At the turn of the century, id Software was riding high off the success of Quake 3, released a month prior. Everyone loved the game, but internally there were still a couple of people at the company who weren't at all content with the multiplayer-focused direction of both Quake 2 and 3. Upon receiving this feedback, head nerd Carmack and co. began working on a new single-player title as their next project. One that played to its strengths of being left completely by yourself. The title prided itself on pushing the limits of what the next generation tech could achieve. Impressive character models, animations, and scripting on top of never-before-seen use of unified lighting and shadowing, basically fancy lighting. Upon first witnessing the game in motion, many were in awe at this technical feat. It was almost as real and detailed as Shrek. Yeah, that's an actual real quote.
How real it looked, how it was maybe Shrek quality animation and graphics.
id Team promised both intense scares and action-packed combat that far surpassed any FPS out on the market at the time. Oh, and it was also gonna be a Doom reboot. Shit, now I'm really scared. Movement in the game is a lot chunkier compared to its 1800 mph predecessor. You're locked at a brisk walking speed for the whole ride. It's still speedy enough for you to be able to dodge oncoming projectiles by a few paramo scenarios. If this Doom guy doesn't feel that fast enough for you, the option of bunny hopping through the halls is always present. The game's thematic choice of pitch big black cock shadows and moody lighting does affect the game tremendously in what many view as a half-glass full situation. Many people, including myself, think this decision is great. It makes the game mad and atmospheric and can sometimes let effectively concealed enemies get the jump on you, making you progressively more paranoid, checking every single gook and tranny for zombies and or possessed UAZ Marines 24/7. Anyone else telling you otherwise is objectively wrong and must have some fuck glaucoma. The game itself gets progressively darker, easing you into the habit of methodically clearing rooms you come across, only relying on your narrow flashlight. Except for when the demons show up and loudly announce their appearance to the literal storm clown from hell, shattering any sense of slow tension. A cool, although extremely underplayed set piece early in the game had you walk through this catwalk in an engine room that was periodically sending EMP charges, killing all the lights for a brief moment. It's a setup that sounds really fun, that would have been more tense if it weren't for Bill Nye calling out the imps before even getting close enough to harm you. All 20-something levels generally consist of the same structure. Plot. Shoot. Walk. Then an obstruction that makes you take an alternative route to a control panel somewhere nearby. Shoot. And the end of the level. Fortunately, not all the levels are exactly the same. The devs really went and spiced the levels up by having more obstructions, this time require you to backtrack through the base in order to recover that one-time MacGuffin. Oh my sweet fuck. Along the way you'll come across your standard FPS pickups consisting of health, armor, ammo, and the use of Berserker mode, which oh boy we'll discuss later. While most of the items are scattered around the place, you'll find the real good shit locked tight in safes found at every corner. These are all opened up by listening/reading to the logs left by all the folks of the UAC. All of these accessed via your handy PDA. I didn't listen to any of these at all. The few I did end up getting were completely drowned out by the migraine-inducing ambience. I feel like I'm missing a talking point here or something. Oh yeah, the guns. Everyone's here. Pistol and fist are bottom tier for obvious reasons. After that, there's the machine gun, grenades, and the skeleton dissolving shotguns, all of which put out pretty decent damage. And after that, there's the plasma rifle, the Gatling gun, and the RPG tearing shit apart. And finally, comfortably resting at the top of the cock, sits the Brazilian fart gun 9000, and a new addition to the team, the I can't do it. The small cubic relic from hell that once charged up sucks the soul of the nearest enemy and adding it to your own health count. The nastier the enemy, the bigger the reward.
And the pee-pee.
My favorite weapon out of all of them has to be the chainsaw. Role-playing as a space Leatherface hiding in the shadows and jumping when the fuckers least suspected it was the most fun I ever had. Early on you'll find these little spider turret things fighting these fuckers as well. If you ever come across them, it is vital that you protect the little thing at all costs. He turns out to be really helpful. The horde of demonic enemies you'll be fighting along the way include both newcomers and returning faces alike. Some of them unfortunately got into some nasty car wrecks. A big portion of these enemies are pretty samey with a small gimmick added to each, so I won't bother to mention them all here. Imps be out there shooting fire, maggots look cool as fuck leaping at you and clawing your face, and wraiths warp around the place thinking they be Nightcrawler or some fag shit, and zombies and lost souls only show up to annoy the utter shit out of you. The only real enemy I had a gripe with enough to point out are the Revenants. They aren't hard enemies to fight against, but fuck if they're not the most annoying bunch. Having to dodge these giant fuck-off tracking missiles in such narrow corridors is nearly impossible. There is, however, a way to fight back. You can end up shooting down every single projectile thrown at you if you're good enough of a shot, which I am definitely not. Mad frustration, boy. Starting off with the graphics, dear fucking lord. These character models are actual dog shit. Look at this shit. You can see where their model textures fucking split up. Honestly, the only thing that visually holds up in the game is the lighting and literally nothing else. Textures look really great from afar, but once you get a foot near it and shine a flashlight at it, big yikes. Look at this fucking geometry, it looks like an actual PS1 game. Visuals are only half of the presentation though, so what about the sound design then? If a sound designer could get paid for shitposting, the result would be Doom 3. This shit is laughably horrendous, at least in the sound effects department. Everything from firing to getting hit sounds way too quiet and soft. All of it really lacking any punch, making it feel limp. Having these heat-seeking fuck missiles from hell blow up in your face sounds more like you're getting socked with a pillow. Early during development, Trent, I'm gonna come all over you, Reznor, was appointing as lead sound designer man. Oh, I wanna die. Oh, I wanna die. The original sound pack from the Doom Alpha can still be downloaded from the Information Superhighway, and even though it really is rough and stock sound effect as fuck, it sounds a million times better than what we ended up getting, be honest. Technical bullshit aside, I do think the visual design of the game is pretty damn strong. Demons and bosses especially share these almost Geigerberg-esque designs that actually made my skin crawl at times, and I have no real shame in admitting it. The bony flesh spiders and flybaby cherubs in particular fuck me up real hard. Best part being that even when looking at these models up close, I still can't put my finger on why they disturbed me. The Revenant, Pinky, and Kako Demon designs on the other hand look like premature stillborn abortions. The highlight would of course be Doom 3's interpretation of Hell. In my opinion, it's probably the trippiest version out of the entire series. The environment around you keeps shifting around to create pathways. The blackened souls of the damned are seen flying out of the ground. During the last quarter, you get to see how Hell starts to slowly merge with the UIC. There are frequent glimpses at giant piles of flesh and vertebrae clogging the hallways. The wiring and tubing starts getting tangled with these gigantic horns protruding seemingly out of nowhere. Every wall etched with bloody writing and glowing pentagrams. This is the kind of shit in games that I really live for. Really live. Doom 3 ended up being a mixed bag for me. IMHO. I'm glad that the gunplay is still intact and as good as ever, though it doesn't really mean that much when looking at the rest of this mangled, pooped on corpse. Pacing was nearly perfect. It had its fair balance of shooting and exploration, but some of the backtracking sections or the sections implementing one-time stage gimmicks were just... Mars Base is probably one of the blandest and butt-fucking ugly-looking settings for a spaceman shooter I've ever had the misfortune of playing through, color palette especially. Outside of the introduction, where you briefly get to see the cafeteria, quarters, offices, and how people operate around the place, that base is mostly comprised of the same catwalks, engine/storage rooms, and cramped corridors as far as the eye can see. And outside of a few quirky set pieces and boss fights, my brain can barely recall any of the levels in the game. I was also mad disappointed at just how short the stage on Hell is. They should have done a half and half, kinda like how Doom 4 did. Really, the only redeeming factors about this game is the great atmosphere achieved in part by the lighting, the ambient OST by the now defunct Tweaker, and the rock-cock solid art design, at least for the Hell portion. If this video, for some bizarro fucking reason, compelled you to maybe give this game a go, get the BFG edition and cram some texture and sound packs into that shit, and you'll be set.